Hi, I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell, and we're going to be doing a content video today. We're going to be talking about getting your credit in order to be able to buy a house. Okay, and there are basically three categories that you can fall into. The first of which is that you pull your credit and your credit's good. Everything's hunky-dory, your balances are low, you've made all your payments on time. There are no obvious mistakes in there as far as your credit limits. If there's bad information being reported that maybe belongs to somebody else, whatever. But anyway, everything's in order. Good to go, way to go. Keep it up, keep your payments going down, pay off your balances, make your payments on time. You're doing good to keep it up. Second category is going to be that you got bad credit. Okay, well, it happens. There are different reasons why people fall down, and a lot of times when folks fall down credit-wise, there's a certain sense of embarrassment or just negative bad vibes that go with that, and a lot of times people will just ignore it. Okay, though it's like it's an unpleasant topic of conversation, and they just don't want to deal with it. So the end result is things just fester on there. Okay, but that's going to be the second category if you have bad credit. Third category is that if you don't have very much credit or you don't have any credit, how to initially get established and how long it's going to take to actually have a positive effect on your ability to buy a house. So those are the three categories that you're going to fit. Okay, let's get into the first one. If your credit's good and you don't see any problems, keep up the good work. Number two, if your credit's bad, it can get more complicated now. And this one I want you to pay really special attention to, because trying to clean your credit up is fraught with the opportunity for unintentional errors, unintended consequences, you might say. I'll give you an example. Let's say that you have a collection account that's 6.5 years old. Okay, and it's got a balance showing. That's going to hurt your credit score, but since it's 6.5 years old, chances are it's not going to hurt you a whole bunch. Now, if you go ahead and you pay that charge card, that collection account off, guess what? The date of your payment is going to be the date of the last activity, and even though that account was 6.5 years old, getting ready to fall off in 6 months, once that date of last activity changes, the clock starts all again. So if you make a payment on an old bad debt, then you're going to get punished for it because it's going to be on there for 7 years from the date of last activity, which will be that payment that you just made. So I'll get into that in just a little bit, but just recognize it that it is fraught with the opportunity for unintended consequences. So be very, very careful. If you're going to err to the conservative, get a professional to help you. I'll actually at the end of the video and in the comments or in the description, I'll put a link to one of the companies that I like. There's only two of them that I really like, but this one I promised I'd give a lead to. So I'm going to go ahead and put it on there in the description and later on in the thing. So, all right, if your credit's bad, number one, the first step is find out where you stand. Okay, every year, every 12 months, you have a right to get a free credit report from all three bureaus. They've actually made it pretty simple to do. There's a website called www.freeannualcreditreport.com. No, I'm sorry, I take that back. www.annualcreditreport.com. Be careful with that because the other one's a ripoff. Or at least not as good as this one. This one's the official one, annualcreditreport.com. There you can pull all three bureaus. Now, they won't have the scores, but I do believe they give the opportunity to buy the scores from all three bureaus, which is kind of interesting to have and to see exactly where you stand at. Okay, so anyway, that'll be the first one. Find out where you stand right at this particular moment. Okay, if you see any errors on there, okay, wrong balances, late payments that weren't late, somebody else's trade line with bad information showing up in yours because they have a similar name, or maybe there was some out-and-out fraudulent activity on your account. Okay, any of that stuff, there is a dispute proceedings. They've actually made it a lot easier. You can go to each one of the credit bureaus, the three main ones. That's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. You can go to their websites, and you can dispute it online. Okay, now the dispute process is not perfect. It's actually, it's gotten better over the years. It used to be that it was just, they gave lip service to it. And unless you basically had, an order from a judge or, something along the lines, they weren't going to change anything. Now that's not necessarily the case. They actually do, they do take it serious. They have 30 days to respond. So find out where you stand. If there's any inaccurate information on there, go ahead and dispute those. Also, when you look at all three bureaus, not every credit trade line is going to be reported on all three bureaus. So if you're going to dispute information, make sure that you do it on all three bureaus, at least on every bureau that trade line is reported on. So if you're being reported on Equifax and Experian but not TransUnion, you don't have to worry about messing with TransUnion on it because it's just not being reported there. But the other two, you want to make sure that you get both of them. So wherever it's showing up at, that's where you want to dispute them at. Okay. Number 2. Make sure that the entity that's reporting it is actually the one that owns your account. Okay, this really comes in with collection accounts, because what will happen is, say you have a charge card or an installment loan that goes into collections, okay, that collection agency will report you onto the credit bureau, and they'll just continue reporting you on there until the cows come home or until the time limit expires, okay, regardless if the information is correct. Regardless if they even own the account anymore, because a lot of times what will happen is after a certain number of days, if they don't collect on that account, they'll lose it. It'll be transferred to another one. Another thing that happens is that these credit bureaus will sell accounts amongst themselves. When it gets to a certain age, people can buy your account from somebody else on the off chance that you're actually going to pay for it while you have it. This is, it's actually kind of a shame, because what will end up happening is, and I've seen this before, where you start off, and it was funny because it was a set of magazine subscriptions. Okay, it was like $35 worth of magazine subscriptions that the guy didn't make the payments on. It got sent to a collection agency. That collection agency in turn sold that to another collection agency, who in turn sold it to another collection agency, so forth and so on, to where there were 4 creditors reporting the exact same trade line. Okay, only one of those creditors can own that account at any one time. So there's only one creditor that should be able to allowed to report that negative information. If there's a creditor that doesn't own the account anymore, then you can dispute it and say, hey, you don't own that account. Okay, you're going to have to withdraw that information. Okay, not necessarily the easiest thing to convince them to do, but if you stick to your guns, you can indeed get it to happen. So again, make sure that the entity that's reporting you is indeed the one that owns the account. Okay, be careful of unintended consequences. I just mentioned that. If your accounts are owed, you might want to let a sleeping dog lie. Okay, again, going back to the other account that I mentioned earlier, where the people had a 6.5-year-old derogatory trade account, and they went ahead and just paid it because that's what they thought they should do, that they should clean it up. Well, a recently paid collection account is not a whole bunch better than an open collection account. It might get you 5 or 7 points, but it's not going to get you 30 or 40 points. It's only going to get you a little amount, and it's going to reset the clock. So if you pay for it, it's 6 years and 11 months, then you're going to be on it for another 7 years since the date of last activity. So again, be careful of unintended consequences. Recognize that the date of the last activity, you can update if you make a payment. Okay. You can negotiate it if you are talking with one of your creditors and it's an older account. And then when I say older, it could be 2 or 3 years old. Okay, time heals all wounds. So the older the collection account is, or the older the derogatory information is, the less it's going to affect you. Okay, so again, if something's really old, you might just want to let sleeping dogs lie. If you do decide that you're going to address a creditor and maybe pay them off, okay, negotiate it and get it in writing. Do not trust these people as far as you can throw them. They will lie to you. Okay, so get it in writing. that they're not going to redate that as the date of last activity when you paid it. You can get them to agree to close the account and stop reporting it. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to agree to doing that, but that's something that you can indeed ask for. So if it's something, if you got a $35 collection account and you just want to pay it off, okay, reach out to them and say, hey, I'd be happy to pay for the $35. I'm sorry it slipped my mind, but I don't want this to hurt me for the next 7 years. So if you will agree to stop reporting the trade line, then I will go ahead and pay you upon receipt. Send me a letter in writing stating that this is what you're going to do, that upon receipt of the payment, and then I'll send you certified funds. I'll send you a cashier's check. We can put it on a charge card, however you want to handle it, however they want to handle it. But that way you won't be penalizing yourself for the next 7 years. Okay, and again, make sure that you get it in writing. Do not trust these people, collection agencies for the most part. And sorry if any of you guys are out there working for one. Collection agencies are one of the sleazier aspects of our society. Okay, last thing on that is if you have a whole bunch of stuff, you look at your credit report and, there's like 15, 20 trade lines on there that's, just negative, bad stuff. You might want to get professional help all the way up to and including a bankruptcy attorney. Okay, sometimes going through a bankruptcy can actually be your fastest way of fixing something. Okay, not all the time, and it comes with its own set of it's fraught with its own set of perils, and it's going to stay on your record for 10 years as a bankruptcy. Even if it's a Chapter 13, it still stays on your credit report for the full 10 years. But anyway, be careful. If by chance it's your situation's really, really bad, you might want to talk to a bankruptcy attorney. Another stop short of that is to talk to a credit repair agency. Now, credit repair agencies run the gambit from being sleazes, scammy, just collect your money and charge all kinds of obnoxious fees, all the way to there's one company I know of that's basically a law firm that basically holds the people's feet to the fire. They charge a subscription that goes on in each month. I don't know exactly what they're charging, but last time I checked, it was like $70 a month or something along those lines. Generally speaking, you're not going to be on there forever and a day. So if you look at it now, some of them want like a percentage of what they get taken off and that sort of thing, and that stuff can get pretty pricey. So be very careful. The one I'm going to recommend to you is a company called Credit 360. Their telephone number is 877-487-4898. Credit 360 is the name of the company. You can go to credit360.com is their website, or you can call 877-487-4898. If you do mention my name, I think you might get a special deal for it. Okay, now the third category is if you have no credit. Okay, no credit's actually not that bad a deal because we can fix that fairly quickly. Generally speaking, 3 to 6 months if you start today. Okay, the first thing I'm going to suggest that you do is get a secured credit card. What a secured credit card is you go to like your credit union or your bank or whatever, and you say, hey, I don't have any credit. I'm trying to get some credit established. I have a savings account that has $1,000 in it, or I have a savings account that has $300 in it. I think 300 is the minimum that they'll mess with. But anyway, what you do is you go ahead and you pledge that savings account as security against the charge card. If you don't make the payments on the charge card, they swoop in and take the money out of your savings account to make it good. Still hurt your credit, but what it does is it gives the lender something to grab onto that will allow them to give you a credit card. Okay, that way they're not going to get hurt if you don't make the payments. If you do make your payments after a number of months, then a lot of times you can transition those secured ones into an unsecured card. If nothing else, after 6 months or a year, you'll start getting solicitations in the mail for unsecured credit cards. Be very careful on those. Sometimes the fees, particularly when you're starting off, if you're trying to rebuild something from bad credit, some of the fees that these credit card companies would try to charge you are punitive. I mean, I saw one that was like $1,000 a year. Ridiculous. I've seen a lot of them that have fees of like $100 a year or $200 a year just to have the charge card as an annual fee. Okay. You might end up having to pay an annual fee at the very beginning. Okay, maybe not, shop around. But if you do, and you're paying $50 or $75 an annual fee, then by all means, it's worth it. Okay, but again, that's going to go on forever and ever, and you're going to want to keep your accounts. So as many as accounts as what you can get with no annual fee, it's going to behoove you in the long run, but in the short run, it might be a necessity. Okay, get a secured signature loan. Same thing as with the charge card, where you go to your credit union and say, hey, I have $500 in my savings account. I want to pledge that, and I want to borrow $500 from you, secured by the $500 savings account. If I don't make a payment, then you come in and they swoop in and they take your money, and everything's hunky-dory, except you don't have a late pay on your credit report. But anyway, getting a mixture of credit kinds, revolving, installment, that goes into your credit score too. So it's not a bad idea to go ahead and get a secured signature loan as well while you're at it. If you need be, if the answer is just simply no, and this is probably going to be a case if you have just really horrendously bad credit, okay, you might need to get a cosigner. Okay, recognize that if you don't make the payments, that cosigner is going to get the dings as well. So be very, very, very careful. I'd be careful who you ask, and I would definitely make sure that you make your payments on time. Okay, become an authorized user. That's where the other thing comes back on you. Okay, as an authorized user, what you can do is you can go to somebody, your mom, your dad, your spouse, somebody who has a long-standing charge card, maybe that has a long history and that they've made all the payments on. They can add you as an authorized user onto that account, which means that the credit card company is then going to start reporting that charge card, that trade line, as if it were your account. So so if you got something that has a real big trade line, like a $10,000 limit, and it's been around for 14 years, and they've never had a late payment, just being added as an authorized user might gain you 40 or 50 points on that. So that's not a bad idea to consider if you got one available to you. Okay, if you've paid your ongoing bills on time, you can actually, gas, electric, cell phone, car insurance, if you've paid those on time, you can make arrangements to have those added onto your credit report. Reach out to each one of the bureaus. They each have a little bit of a different process on how to do that. Then you have to reach out to the creditor, to the utility or the company themselves, to get them to start reporting your payments to them. But that's another way that if you got something, if you know you've always made your car insurance on time, if you know that you've always made your cell phone payment on time, those are ones that you can go ahead and add on to the credit report, which will then get factored into the scoring model. Okay. The next one is practice good credit hygiene, good credit habits. Keep your balances to less than 30% of the credit limits. Less than 10% is even better, okay? Every once in a while, you don't want the accounts to go inactive on you, so you do want to go ahead and use the cards every once in a while. Most charge cards, if you don't use them within the course of a 12-month calendar year, they can go inactive, and then they stop being factored into your credit score. So you might want to go ahead and make sure that you use each one of your cards to make a small purchase. It doesn't have to be anything big. $5 or $10 purchase on Amazon would be more than enough to keep the account open and going. Okay. You again use a good mix of credit, installment loans, revolving loans. If going to get a mortgage is not a bad idea, that can really help you. That a lot of times that's the difference between somebody having perfect, like an 850 credit score, and having an 800 credit score. All other things being equal, just having a mortgage that you've made payments on time can actually bump you up to that next level because it increases your credit mix. Okay. Stay on top by reviewing your reports. So once a year, you have a right to go ahead and get your credit report from the annualcreditreport.com. But a lot of charge cards will come with the ability to get a 1, 2, or even some of them even have a 3 bureau credit report that's available to you for free. That doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't cost you any points on it because it's considered a soft pull. Check with the charge card companies you have and see if they offer that service. Okay. The other thing is keep old accounts active. Okay. If you got a charge card that you've had for 6 or 7 years, don't pay it off just simply because you don't use it, because the average age of your account is one of the things that goes into your credit score. So anyway, those are some steps that you can take depending on where you're at as far as getting your credit in order to be able to buy a house. Again, it doesn't matter if you have good credit, bad credit, or no credit. There's a way out of it. Time heals all wounds. If you have any questions about this, if you need some coaching, feel free to reach out to me. If it's just a 1 or 2 or 3 question thing, I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. If it gets into anything more than that, we might refer you out to Credit 360. Again, not going to be a terribly expensive thing, and what they can do is far beyond what I can do. So anyway, I am Bob the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. If you have any questions about reestablishing or establishing credit, or just getting your house in order to where you can buy a house, please feel free to reach out to me. Now, let's put you into a house.